Hi everyone, I hope you had a really good weekend and welcome to a new episode of Career Backstage podcast. Today we will talk about how employment market looks like and will be a comparison between the present and the future, and we invited Chris Redmond, who is the managing partner at RedHolt, to share some insights and experience about future skills or future jobs and what jobs wouldn't be replaceable by artificial intelligence. So before we actually jump into the topic, I would like to give a little bit of overview and a bit of information who is Chris. So he has owned his own business and sold it before the age of 25, which means that Chris, you have such a lot of experience in the business. So he has driven some of the fastest growing accounts in the time of the UK telecoms sector, as well as being part of the group leadership team at 1.3 billion COLT Telecoms at 26 years old only. So in the recruitment chapter of his career, Chris has been managing director, as I mentioned before, at NP Group and Salt. His wife Amanda now own and run one of the most advanced companies in the UK when it comes to outcomes. So welcome to Career Backstage, Chris. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation.
It's a massive compliment to be invited. Thank you, Diana.
So, Chris, before we actually start to talk about the topic, so please let's share with people who is Chris Redmond and what actually people don't know about you, because a lot of people, I'm pretty sure, come to you, come for helping them to get the right job. But I'm just wondering what people don't know about you.
Well, I would definitely say at the beginning part of my career, in the earlier stage of my career, there was maybe a business Chris and a personal Chris where I kept the two things quite separate. But actually, the notion that you're interrogating me on, Diana, politely, around what I keep in the public domain and what is part of the business persona of Chris, the two are very similar things. And I actually think that kind of omni-channel authenticity is really important for business leaders nowadays. Anybody can check out your LinkedIn profile and they can just as quickly look on your Instagram. And if they notice that there's a huge discrepancy between those two things, it makes you wonder why somebody, which one is the accurate Chris. So actually, anyone can check my LinkedIn story or they could check my Instagram story. And quite often, not always, but quite often they would see that it's exactly the same content. I'm very, very transparent in terms of my openness and confidence in the public domain, and privately, I suppose. They're very similar. But headlines are, I'm definitely a family guy. I've got 3 children. My eldest daughter's 15. We're coming on 15 very soon. My oldest son is 10. He loves his football. He's a really cool guy. He's like my little best mate. Then I have a 15, 16-month-old son called Alfie. He's like a mini rugby player. He's wandering around like the boss everywhere. And then in June, my wife, Amanda, who is also my business partner, as you said, is going to give birth to our son, our next son. So in a few months, I'm going to have 4 kids. The things that I love in life, I love running. I've completed the London Marathon twice. In September, I'm going to climb the highest peak in North Africa called Mount Toubkal, which is 4,000 meters high. So I'm going to complete that with some friends who are chief executives as well of recruitment companies. And I love cars. I love Formula One. I love my cars. I love motorsport as well. So kind of headlines, that's me.
Perfect. Okay, so there are people who watch us. I just really want to say, if you have any questions related how employment market look like, a comparison between present and the future, please feel free to leave your comments in the comment box, and me and Chris will get back to you and we'll answer straight away. So, Chris, what jobs are in real demand nowadays? Because I'm pretty sure, there are a lot of people who obviously finish universities, have a lot of skills and have a lot of experience and expertise in a particular field. And some of them, they would like maybe to change their career. But what jobs are in real demand nowadays?
Well, look, I would say there are 2 broad categories of jobs that I would say are in demand. The first one, which is agnostic of whatever is happening in the market, something that companies always want and need is salespeople. Always. Whether or not that's hunters or farmers, companies always want and need salespeople. The second one, which I think is accentuated by the moment that we're in terms of the digital revolution, is anything to do with data. You know, there's lots of different job titles, Diana, predominantly they're cosmetic. Actually, roles that are orientated around data, the understanding of data, its origin, how to manipulate it, how to create advantageous commercial propositions from data. They are the roles of the moment right now. So in terms of people who might be repurposing their career or people who are just entering the world of work, you know, I would say that the hot topics at the moment are orientated around data.
Okay. Yeah, and what kind of specific skills employers looking for in this economics time? Because, you know, skills a little bit kind of change. So what, because, you know, you're working in recruitment and you have clients who obviously have a profile of candidates. Perhaps, okay, I really want this type of profile with this type of skills, with this type of expertise. So what are the most common specific skills that employers looking nowadays, for example, in this times?
Yeah, it really depends on the role, Diana. You know, I think if you're looking, let's just stick with that theme of data for a second. So if you were looking at data scientists and in the business analyst end of the spectrum, it's really about how to extract data from systems. It's about how to normalize that data so that it's in a format that can be manipulated. And then it's about how to interrogate that data so that it can generate structured outputs, i.e. intelligence. You know, that's really what the companies want from data. That's kind of on the business analyst side of things. If you start moving through the business life cycle, maybe to start off with in terms of marketing, this is one of the areas where there is a really, really sharp focus on data. What are people doing? Where are they doing it? How are they doing it? Becoming predictive about how people are likely to act in different environments and at different moments of their day, of their week, of their month, of their life. You know, once they do one thing based on data sets, what is it indicative of that they will do next? You know, predictability starts to come into play, and then you start to get into the grounds of artificial intelligence. You know, the lines start to become blurred. I think then if you migrate more towards the commercial, you know, from business analyst through to marketing and then sales roles, business development type roles, the understanding of data and how to utilize it. Actually, maybe there's a slightly less emphasis on data because they will be given the data. I would say that there is an enhanced emphasis for salespeople, hunters or farmers, to be extremely powerful when it comes to how they utilize digital tools nowadays, particularly video content. And then, you know, even through to delivery and project management, the way that we've got methodologies such as agile methodology now that are much more appropriate for an age where the nature of what is being created is virtual, although the benefits are real. Yeah. The nature of what's been constructed is virtual rather than physical. All of these types of professions have got a different accent when it comes to the interpretation of data and what it means to that particular profession.
Yeah, and I think now what I actually noticed that a lot of employers before, you know, we were talking about flexibility, just, you know, everyone should be flexible when they start getting a job in a specific company. Now, actually, employers start looking for people who have that ability of adaptability. I would say, sorry. They would like people who are adaptable because now with this, you know, artificial intelligence and that companies should be kind of forced adopt different kind of software system in place just to run more efficiently their operations management. So they have to adapt themselves. Thank you, Chris, that you mentioned about specific skills and in terms of, if you can give us an example in terms of personality and also experience, what employers looking at the moment? If you can share us with an example. I know that different type of jobs, people and different type of companies, they're looking for different type of, experience, expertise, and also personality. But if you can share us an example, just to have an understanding, candidates who are looking for a specific role to get a specific company, for example, what kind of personality they need to have in order to, to match with the employer?
Yeah. It's a really important question, Diana, and I know that you understand this from our previous conversations, but I think that there is an enhanced degree of maturity from employers nowadays around people being more than just a range of abilities that they've got. It's interesting because whereas so many more aspects of our working life are becoming virtualized, the ability to do so many things via Zoom, that has been accentuated and made necessary by the pandemic. But actually that now will be the way that it is. But although that's virtual, it's made many other aspects of people's lives more real. Their ability to exercise, their ability to have more control over their day. All of these things are more real, more within their control. What does it mean when it comes to what employers are looking for, to your point? I think employers are looking now at, well, if this person's going to be working in a totally remote location, most of the time, if not all of the time, who is this person? Can we trust this person? Are they going to deliver? Because we're not just going to be able to invite them into a meeting room to give them a one-to-one conversation. We're not just going to be able to sit with them and do some training in the boardroom for 2 hours every morning. It's not the case. And so I think companies have got a much more passionate posture when it comes to their ability to assess people's values, people's personality, the things that actually in reality have always made human beings what we are. And actually what I think it does is it gives you more of an appreciation for where we are coming from was definitely more antiquated when it came to how employers were evaluating the people that they extend employment offers to. They just said, yeah, you've done the right jobs, you would be perfect. They don't know anything about that person's value set or what other people they would react with very well. And all of these things are really, really important to create what at RedHolt we call proximity to value. And proximity to value is where somebody can start a new job and as quickly as possible deliver the value that that employer is looking for.
So RedHolt, Chris, do you do any kind of personality test in order, to match, candidates with employers? Because I'm pretty sure when you got a client on board, right, and they're saying, okay, we need this type of person, like where we can trust, that can deliver, that, is quite flexible, adaptable, and this kind of thing. So how you make sure that, for example, the candidate that you propose to the client is the right one? Do you have kind of, any personality test in place that you do?
Definitely. So, for us, when we include somebody on our digital shortlist, we want to not only represent as much of that person as possible to the employer, to the hiring manager, but we also want to be able to understand them, Diana, because if we're advocating that these are the best people who are available in the market, there are other aspects of what those people represent that we should be fluent in. For a start, number one, we evaluate every single candidate with what we call the 6 dimensions of potential. Now, that's a very subjective thing, but it's a structured narrative that we go through with every single candidate. And why do we do that? We do that because every person is more than just the job titles that they have had.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what achievements have they had in their life, personally and professionally? What makes them really proud? What's their attitude towards life and their career? What's their core values? These are just 3 of the things included in the 6 dimensions of potential that we understand and that we appreciate so that we're able to articulate those things when we're presenting someone. We also supplement that with, at a very minimum, a DISC profile for every candidate. And actually what we've got now is a combination, us in conjunction with a company called Savage Exec, and a guy who I've known very well called Mark Savage for many years. And if a client would like to do what we call RedHolt Plus, which is enhanced hiring. So we're pretty proud of our standard level product, but if a client wants even more, they can purchase the RedHolt Plus enhancement module. And the enhancement module means that each person on our shortlist will also have a profile called a GC index, and that's a game changer index. And it brings a lot more depth to what we're able to present, not only in terms of that candidate, but in terms of how they're likely to respond to the moment that they will enter the business at, the challenges of their business, what they will offer, and how they're likely to act in terms of wherever the current projects are in the life cycle. So there's a whole range of things in response to that question, Diana.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing into discussion this, Chris, because I've been living in London for the last 10 years. And I remember when I started, my career in human resources management. And of course, first thing, I got a job through an agency. And I remember that, this kind of service that just you mentioned, they were not in place in that time back in 2015. For example, I supposed to go, if I wanted to do a personality test, I supposed to, reach out to a specialist, for example, a accreditation, and a person to do this. And I said, like, okay, it would be really great to be, in a recruitment agency to have this kind of services in place, because it makes a good, sense and better sense for me as a candidate to understand the profile of the organization, and vice versa, the organization to understand my profile and how we can work together. And that's amazing. Congratulations that you do this. And I'm pretty sure you are really successful. RedHolt is really successful in doing that. So now we talk a little bit about the present jobs. Now let's go in the future a little bit. And in the very near future, we won't have the same jobs that we have today, because, introducing the artificial intelligence, some kind of jobs will gonna disappear and new jobs will gonna be created. So how jobs of the future look like? If you can share with us an example. I know that McKinsey done a report on that, and they said, like, okay, the human resources jobs that we do now will have a completely different title, like maybe working remotely, HR consultant, something like that. So I'm just wondering how, for example, this job going to look like the future employment market.
Well, obviously, all of this is conjecture at the moment, Diana, but this is where I think it's really exciting, because I think this is really happening now. I think there are a number of different levels of how not just artificial intelligence, but superpower computing is going to affect where we are from a sociological perspective, from a business perspective, humanity in general. Number one, the jobs that we have, like you have said, will change. I think they will fragment, and I think people will have a richer opportunity to develop deep subject matter expertise in aspects of jobs that we have nowadays, like you say. And the reason that they will have a greater opportunity to do that is because digital platforms, through things like the gig economy, will give specialists access to a sufficient critical mass of opportunity where they can generate a good income, that can become their profession, and they'll be able to focus on things where at the moment, because we bulk these tasks up, because there isn't a marketplace to give you sufficient access to just do one thing. So I think the gig economy and websites like Fiverr, I don't know if you know Fiverr.
Yeah, I heard about Fiverr.
Yeah. So Fiverr is a place where people who have got specialist skills in lots of things can actually just sell that skill. And they sell it quite transactionally, but they can get sufficient opportunity to make it into a full-time job. That's the first thing. I think the second thing is new jobs will be created. So, for example, I'm aware of the fact that many universities across the UK that used to be mechanical and electrical engineering universities that run courses of that nature are now rapidly changing the complexion of their portfolio and syllabus so that they can offer people electrical engineering courses, the increasing number of hybrid engines and fully electric engines from Tesla, Toyota, even now all the super brands. Recently, I think Tata, Jaguar Land Rover announced that they would be entirely electric within the next 15 years. And then I think Ford followed the next day by saying that they would be entirely electric within the next 10 years. Think of the kind of demand that this generates in the institutional education sector, as well as from an employment perspective and the change to the economy. That's just one thing. Then another thing, and I could carry on for a long time here, Diana, so you've probably opened a box of, can of worms, but, I'll wrap up on this one before we explore the topic further. Think about the augmentation of sectors, particularly, well, not just particularly, but let's just think about healthcare. Think of the benefit that AI can bring to healthcare. But it's not just about AI. Also, if you look at companies like NVIDIA, the phenomenal growth of the share price in NVIDIA has not just been driven because their processing and compute capacity is so distinct. Actually, what that leads to is what they call deep learning. And deep learning is just as important as artificial intelligence. In fact, I would make a strong case to say that they're symbiotic. You need deep learning, rapid deep learning, literally millisecond deep learning, in order for artificial intelligence to exist. Because artificial intelligence is clearly a predictive phenomenon, and deep learning is a retrospective phenomenon. So, everything's up for grabs, I think, in terms of how the digital revolution will advance how we operate in terms of people, particular jobs that exist now, and jobs that will need to exist in the future to prop up this digital economy that we're going to have.
Yeah, and what will going to be the skills of the future jobs, let's say? So also according to McKinsey reports, so they mentioned that cognitive skills will be, and when we say cognitive skills, we mean about empathy. So that will going to be a really skill in demand, I would say, and also creativity. For example, in jobs like in IT jobs and also in marketing, this will going to be two skills that will going to be used quite a lot. What other skills can be, used, will be the, let's say, really demanded skills of the jobs of the future?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, Dana, because for me, I think we would be doing a disservice to many colleagues around the world in the human race who are phenomenally creative people nowadays. I think that what's happened is that we've got this moment where the medium and the platform that we're all on has changed. And so everything has to be reorientated. I think you are absolutely right. The cognitive skills and what I've always called the EQ, emotional intelligence side of things, there's a real emphasis on that right now. And I think there's a real emphasis on it because more and more people are learning how to interact with each other over digital platforms where you don't have the same proximity. You don't see all of the same things that we have learned for thousands of years as human beings in terms of body language and the interaction. And even, if we were in a room with each other filming this now, Diana, you would probably know within the first 5 seconds of me walking into that room what mood I was in. The way I opened the door, my face,
exactly.
I approach you. Yeah. You and all of your ancestors have kind of got that in your DNA, right? I see it with my 15-month-old. I know that he can tell what mood I'm in from the way I talk to him.
Yeah.
The reality now, when we open a Zoom call with each other, we're on immediately, and we're all learning how to quickly evaluate all of those things that are really important for effective communication. So, I think the cognitive skills side is just one part of things, but I think everything is under review at the moment. What I particularly love about RedHolt and what we've done is, I always say, guys, we just do the basics really, 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 really well. And in a digital sense. So we've basically, about this time last year, about the 13th of March, 2020, I remember having a conversation with a good friend of mine who is also the chief executive of a big marketing company for the recruitment sector called Hoxo Media. His name's Sean Anderson. And I spoke to Sean and I said, we all need to pivot now. Now is the moment to pivot. If we wait, it's not a good survival skill. We need to start to learn quickly, relearn. And so that's what we did. And at RedHolt, we deconstructed our whole process, and we reconstructed our whole process in a matter of days, good enough to go back to market with, and good enough to keep the momentum of the business that we had. Now, obviously, it did dip. I'd be lying if I said it didn't. It did slow down. But because of the fact that we had reconstructed our process, we were digitally creative. We found ways to assess and present candidates. We actually got better, Diana. It was a compelling reason for us to unpack and repack our process. And I honestly think our process has never been as good. It's never been as compelling and rewarding as it is for all of the stakeholders now, as it is now.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Chris, because as I mentioned, living in London for the last 10 years now, remember the first job when I got through the recruitment agency, definitely or not this kind of services in place. And I'm really happy, glad that they are now, because this was a need. So that's why sometimes there have been wrong people in the wrong jobs. This is what I could notice and see so many people. And that was not their fault, to be honest. So that's really good that you mentioned about multicultural, like, working in a different area, working from a different area, working with different people from different cultures, from different nationalities. And this is also going to be like a really good skill. I feel like people who are going to have kind of this experience or the ability of multiculturalism, they're all going to be really in demand, because they will know about how to interact with different cultures, with different people, with different background, different nationalities, which are going to be really helpful. Because I even sometimes saw this, like in, I've been in different groups of HR, and I remember someone who is working in IT. They are a team, I think, of 5, but they're working, they're from different countries. And the guy actually put in the comment, do you know someone who can actually help us to improve our communication skills? And I thought, like, maybe it's not about the communication skills, maybe it's about because you don't really know each other. So the team was mixed from different countries. So it's not, sometimes you even know very well English, but it's not about the English. It's more about how you interact with each other, how better you know each other, how well you know your triggers and everything like that. So yeah, multicultural thing will going to be also in demand, I think. So do you think, like, in the next 10 years, we will see the emergence of new educational and training programs that can successfully train large numbers of workers in the skills they need to perform the jobs of their future? Because I think the curricula will going to change also for education.
Yeah, I really do. And I think it'll be a prerequisite for companies. We're not a huge company, Diana, but it's already happening here. We've that deconstruction moment that I mentioned about our process. One of the fantastic things about when we reconstructed our process is that we literally did it piece by piece. Every single action, every single system, its correlation and handshake and interface to different actions. What we learned was that we have 8 stages in our process, and we have 83 separate tasks in our recruitment process. Now, some of those tasks take 30 seconds. Some of them take hours, if not days, but all of them create what we have. And knowing that has allowed us to create a remarkably effective training program for our new starters, because it means we've got the blueprint to what we do. There's no conjecture, there's no guesswork. It's all extremely forensic in the way that we bring people on board now and the way that we're able to train people. And even the people that have been with us for years, they find it really compelling and extremely uplifting, because they're like, wow, I've got something like a quality assurance checklist to check myself against. One of the things that we've been able to do from a marketing perspective is map our customer journeys. And, going back to a point that we were making earlier, Diana, about why that's important, we have a lot of technology at RedHolt. One of the things that we've got that does work on artificial intelligence and deep learning is our WhatsApp interface. So we're able to interact with clients and candidates via WhatsApp. And every single time it interacts with them, our marketing team are looking for trends. They're looking for things that are being requested. and they're able to build in a new stream of responses based off those words. Now, it becomes very predictive. It starts to teach itself, and it means that blueprint that we've got is not only good for being able to train people up in a virtual sense, and for our existing people to have a really strong spine when it comes to quality assurance, but it also means that we're now able to communicate with the whole world in a much more effective way, with relevant customer journeys, with the content that they're looking for when they reach out to us. And we're able to make them stronger and stronger all the time. Coincidentally, it also means that we're GDPR compliant, because we're doing things through the kind of platforms that companies should be using, rather than using individual WhatsApp platforms, which is actually, I don't think as many companies realize as they should, that that's a potential exposure when it comes to GDPR compliance.
And as we talk about artificial intelligence, and the people have that kind of fear, now we have artificial intelligence in place, that means a lot of jobs are going to be cut, and that means people are not going to have enough jobs. So which jobs do you think wouldn't be replaceable by artificial intelligence?
Well, look, I don't know specifically, but I can tell you something with a high degree of confidence.
Yeah.
The reason that entrepreneurs and business leaders and companies employ people is because there is a compelling outcome that they expect, a return on the investment that they make to employ that person. And so therefore, personally, I think that there was a lot of room to hide in companies that have just become outdated. I think what most people are looking for with their employment is a sense of purpose, recognition, true reward, and the feeling of doing something. And I think that the jobs that are created will be real jobs. They'll have real actions associated to them that will allow people, as we were talking about earlier, to employ their creativity or cognitive skills or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think the jobs that will be created will be exciting for us all, because they're going to be new jobs, in this digital frontier that we're currently all marching towards, and that we're on and in some cases over. But, I think there is going to be deep, with the latitude on flexible working that the pandemic has really acted as a catalyst to enable, and the fact that many people will now be employed in jobs where the distinction between what they need to do and what they don't need to do will be more clear than ever, will make for much more enjoyable, purposeful jobs for people when they are employed. Put it this way, to give you some contrast, we all know companies that have employed people that we might call dead wood. And those people turn up to the same old desk at the right time every day, turn up at 9, leave at 5, and actually the value that they add between 9 and 5 is questionable. But it's because maybe that job has become outdated. Maybe it's kind of in the gray zone of what they should be doing. I think that when the measurables and the metrics associated to what people do are much more clear, and they always will be when it comes to digital orientation, people are going to find that they're able to be recognized for the value that they add much more evidently than companies were able to before, when it was all about who's at their desk on time.
Yeah, I also feel like I'm not quite sure what are going to be the jobs. I mean, the name of the jobs that wouldn't be replaceable by artificial intelligence, but I know that the jobs who are going to require quite a lot of cognitive skills, for example, that definitely wouldn't be replaceable by artificial intelligence.
No.
And how the recruitment trends will change in the near future, because you're in recruitment, and how do you think that trends are going to change? They started already to change from traditional recruitment, but there is anything else, for example, that is will be changing?
Well, one of the perpetual truths of recruitment is that whenever you say to a hiring manager, when would you like this job to be filled, when you're taking a role briefing, the answer always, without exception, is yesterday. That is always what the hiring manager says. The great thing for hiring managers now is that if they choose the right agencies to work with, they might not be able to do it yesterday, but the proximity to when they get the candidate that they want should be much shorter. Why? Because building a tech stack of tools that facilitate faster identification of the right candidates, that facilitate more productive engagement for the right candidates, how to get their attention, that facilitate a more rapid building of credibility between the candidate and the agency. You know, historically there's been that, can I trust this agency? Technology definitely helps us at RedHolt in a number of different ways to it acts as a catalyst and an accelerant for building credibility. Then the actual process, how quickly you can send the shortlist and how quickly you can evaluate the candidates, can be done far quicker than it ever could before. And not just far quicker, but the depth of quality in that digital shortlist can be better than it's ever been before. And then the actual selection process, you know, if the selection process is underpinned with a great blend of fantastic technology, brilliant methodology, and passionate recruitment consultants. When I say passionate, I mean passionate about the agenda of the candidate as well as the client, to kind of remove that legacy transactional feeling that used to happen. If the consultant is truly a consultant, then actually when you put all of those things together, Diana, it's not difficult to understand how the recruitment process should become much better for everybody that's involved with it. I also think the final thing is, you know, let's not forget and let's cling on for dear life to the fact that actually, thank God, we all still do love interacting with each other. Yes, we've all got our favorite app and our favorite systems and this and that and everything else, online banking, email, you know, text. But at the same time, we've all got our favorite people as well. And actually, when you can find somebody that personifies a great process and you feel confident that that person has got a bag full of tricks when it comes to the wizardry, the technical wizardry that they've got, it's really compelling to work with somebody like that, because then you feel as though they've got the combination of the EQ and the IQ where you're going to get a great result. And you know, I think there are lots of things that will rapidly change. They already have over the last year about recruitment, but the main thing still, it's the same as if you're working with a doctor or a lawyer. If somebody is representing any aspect of your personal agenda, your health, your legal standing, your career, it's important to feel as though the person who is representing you gives you good counsel and represents you enthusiastically, but with high integrity as well. So, you know, I still think it will be the people that bring it to life with certain professions, no matter how good the technology gets.
Yeah, exactly. And I just wanted to ask you, because just right now came in my mind, there are some companies that are starting using digital CV rather than, you know, sending CV. So I'm just wondering if RedHolt kind of have this kind of requirements from the client. Okay, I really want a digital CV rather than, you know, when I say digital CV, I mean the CV when the person obviously needs to talk about himself rather than sending a CV on a hard paper by email.
Yeah. So look, most people now have got a LinkedIn profile, and that kind of constitutes the first step. I'd say the very rudimentary step of having an online footprint when it comes to, you know, making your presence felt in the job market. Whether you're an active candidate, i.e. looking for a job, or a passive candidate, i.e. I've got a job, I'm not happy, I'm not looking. But the reality is, if you've got a LinkedIn profile, you are in the market. Fact. Which is good, right? But when people come to RedHolt, or more typically when we approach them, because we're headhunters, what we will do is pretty quickly build a digital profile for them. And that digital profile, Diana, will feature a resume because it's useful. There's a reason why it's existed as the sole entity of applications for decades. It will continue to feature a resume, but it will also feature video interviews or video responses of that person. It will also feature a subjective write-up from a third party using something like the 6 dimensions of potential. And it should also feature some form of psychometric evaluation as well, so that that candidate is able to say, look, across these 4 items, These are like the 4 points of the compass for you to navigate me as a candidate. My videos, my CV, my write-up, my psychometric profile. It doesn't leave much to the imagination, and the emotional response that you want to engender with a hiring manager is, wow, this person looks fantastic. I need to speak to them as soon as possible.
Exactly. No, that's brilliant, because I just had a person from United States finished COLT International Business School last year, and I mentor him. He got so far a job at Amazon now, and he was really happy. But I remember he was so nervous, for example, last year with this pandemic situation, when he's supposed to have the interview, via Zoom, and he said, like, I'm not able. I really want to have face-to-face interviews. I really want to feel the energy of people. I really want to see that person next to me when he's asking me any questions. And that's why, because I know that people feel really nervous about, and it's really great that, you kind of break this, nervosity and try to help people with that, because it's really important. Not everyone feels really comfortable to speak in front of the camera. Even we feel like, okay, it's not a big issue, to speak via Zoom, but for some people there are. So, and you help them out.
But, just on that point, sorry, Diana, if I can
rudely
interject, it's really important that when you've got more to offer a hiring manager, you can help them more as well. So first of all, when you've got all of those things about a candidate, you really understand them better. And the people that make it onto the digital shortlist are much more likely, at least, to get a productive interview, however that interview is facilitated. Then secondly, if you think about the role that we play for our hiring managers, we have to be the trusted counsel to those hiring managers. We have to foster a relationship with those individuals where we're able to say to them, hey, listen, you've said this or that to me a few times. I think what you really mean is this. Now, please tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm feeling that my interpretation of what you're saying might be two different things. And then when you're able to say, if you look at this candidate, it's not just about their CV, it's about their profile. How do they come across? Look at their psychometric proclivities, the things that they are more likely to be when they are in the role. You're able to have a more composed influence, and therefore a more productive, positive influence on how a hiring manager approaches the purpose of their role within a selection process, which ultimately, I know people think it's, people think whatever they think of recruitment consultants, but good recruitment consultants are really able to deeply understand, evaluate, and represent different agendas across an evolving landscape. And that's not an easy thing to do, no matter what your role is.
Of course, Chris, and I really love that you bring into discussion about Proclivities, because, when a company is hiring someone, they're hiring people for long term, right? They really want that these people be loyal, be for long term in the company, to inspire productivity and obviously also to achieve the company goals. And it's really important that by doing this, showing to the hiring managers what kind of inclination this person have, because this person, obviously, even we're going to stay in the organization for 3-4 years, I'm pretty sure this person will going to be promoted. And when he's promoted, you need definitely to see that kind of proclivities, because we're going to be a job transition. And it's really important, this. And I'm really happy that you're doing this. This is amazing. I kind of love what you do, guys, because I felt like this is supposed to be done like a few years ago, because when I was looking for jobs in London, I felt that there was a huge demand on that. And that's why when I started to do mentoring, I started kind of bringing personality and also values into people's CVs, because I feel like, okay, we need to look from a different perspective. Right.
I think just, on that point about proclivities, you're absolutely right. A lot of companies absolutely want to bring people in that they can embrace to become part of the fabric of that business and that team and that culture for a long time, but not always. And the proclivities of an individual sometimes suit a short-term sprint, and some businesses need individuals whose inclinations lend themselves to that kind of short-term sprint as well. And the interesting thing is that sometimes people look, this is the classic, right? When people say, oh, he's got a short attention span. But actually, maybe his concentration is very intense for shorter periods of time, whereas someone who you go, he's got a long attention span, maybe the concentration level is lower for longer. You know, the ability to not only understand the proclivities of a candidate, but also to really understand what the client really needs is the hallmark of a good recruitment agency.
Yeah, great. And I didn't even feel how the time flew, because it's 45 minutes already that we've done so far, which is amazing. And we discussed so many things about this topic, and I would say it's really relevant and hot topic. So let's try kind of summarizing few bullet points, because always the last question that I'm asking is actually about, it's the topic. So how employment market looks like in comparison between, the present and the future. If we can summarize, let's say, in few bullet points, or some tips to give candidates about this, that are going to be really great.
Okay, so I would say the first thing to recognize and remember is that the undercurrent in virtually every sector, everywhere in the world, is digital enablement. The influence that is creating that catalyst is the digital revolution, and that's been happening for decades already. So there's no denying that that's the case. I think the pandemic has accentuated how valuable digital platforms can be. It's accelerated the value that we can get as individuals, as individuals, as colleagues, as businesses, from things like robotic process automation, from deep learning, from artificial intelligence, as we've spoken about. And actually, once you start to get on the wave that leads us into all of these notions, you start to recognize how those characteristics are going to start to manifest themselves in the way that companies employ people, either to do short-term sprints or to become long-term members of the fabric of a business going into the foreseeable future. And by the foreseeable future, I mean everything from the next 10 years to the next 50 years, and who knows what's going to happen there. One thing that I would absolutely say is that I believe that candidates have got a better opportunity than ever to be selective about agencies that they work with that represent them. It's easier than ever to differentiate between candidates that are likely to treat you in a transactional way and those that are likely to embrace you and recognize you with the full latitude of what makes you who you are as a person, not just as an asset or an employee to a company. And therefore, I think that ultimately the conclusion that I arrive at when it comes to this topic around how is the world of work going to look in the future, it's going to look much, much different when it comes to digital enablement. It's going to be much more exciting and rewarding when it comes to being an employee in a fully digitally enabled role. And you only have to look at what's happening on stock markets around the world now, right now, and onto the Bitcoin. I think on Sunday, Bitcoin reached its highest value ever, $47,000 per Bitcoin. This is happening right now. And, people that embrace it and actually enjoy the creativity that the digital canvas creates are going to find themselves in advantageous positions going forward in their career.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. It was really great insights, valuable information. Thank you so much for people who are actually watching us. Thank you so much for your patience. And I'm pretty sure you found really useful and helpful the information and everything what we discussed here with Chris. And thank you so much once again for sharing this. And I will see you I'll see you on 29th of March with Benjamin von Sieger, where we're going to discuss about how to prevent the anxiety, because a lot of people, with this coronomics time, and because some people actually they lost their jobs, or because of high level of stress, they feel anxious. So let's see how we can prevent this anxiety. Thank you so much once again, and I'm inviting you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Career Backstage, so you can take control of your career, because it's really important. Thank you.
Diana, if I can just add one final thing.
Yes, of course.
Anybody that is either a subscriber to your YouTube channel or who has been watching this or who watch watch this when you release it on LinkedIn and other channels afterwards. I'm a big believer in what goes around comes around. Some old-fashioned principles in this digital revolution still stand firm. And I think that if people would like my help, or if they'd like even 5 minutes to bounce their ideas off me and get some advice, I'm very, very, very open. I'm very, very, very easy to find. And I'm very, very, my posture is that I'm really here to help people. So anyone can feel welcome to reach out to me.
Yeah, I can say to our audience, I mean, Chris is a really professional person. I know Chris because Chris has been introduced by Dr. Selina Neri, is my professor from RedHolt International Business School. And yeah, please not hesitate. I mean, Chris, he's been really super useful and helpful. We had a discussion about some things, and he was really super useful. So don't hesitate to get in touch with Chris. You can find Chris on LinkedIn, and whenever I was going to promote the episode, Chris, I'll just, if you would like me, I can put in the comments, or I can share your LinkedIn profile so people can get in touch with you. That was going to be really helpful, because you're doing amazing things. As I said, like, being in London for the last 10 years, I didn't really see a lot of recruitment. I didn't see any recruitment agencies to do that. So you're doing a lot, and you're helping a lot of the candidates, and they need now this. So don't hesitate to get in touch with Chris.
Thanks, Diana. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Take care, stay safe in this coronomics time, and I will see you next time. Bye. Thank you.